Thanks for having me. My talk will be in English, but I'm available for questions also in German all the time later and during the day. Cool. Today, let's talk about, as the introduction already said, the rise of AI in design and the question if we might lose our creative control. I'd like to start with the question who was posed in Quora like a couple years ago, where a person asks, do we have a panic button for the day when AI takes over? And there was Vladislav, who wrote a pretty good answer to that. And he was saying, when it takes over, what? And then he wrote a pretty long answer, and I guess all of you knew it already. And he wrote, hey, there's no takeover anymore, because what you see or what you read on Amazon is controlled by an AI. What kind of music you listen to on Spotify, of course, is controlled by an AI. And even what you know about your friends on Facebook is controlled by an AI. So there's no really takeover anymore. AI is already everywhere. And I'm going to propose the question, or frame the question, what you see was designed by an AI. So this is like the bigger topic which will frame my talk. Is AI becoming a creative partner for us? Is it more like a creativity killer, or will it place us designers altogether? Good introduction to me. I'm Jan. As already mentioned, I'm senior UX designer. I work at Futurist. That's a large company, a large agency, sorry. And previously I worked for a machine learning startup. That's why I have some knowledge and some interest in those kind of all of machine learning things as well. And I like to cycle, of course. Let's start with some fun facts about humanity. And if you think about where did we start as humans? And of course, we always use tools to augment our capabilities of doing certain things, like whatever you want to do, making fire, or those kind of stuff. There are already always tools. And it's kind of the same with AI. There's also like a tool we will use. And ideas in this kind of tool topic are not new. There was Doug Engelbart in the 70s who already proposed ideas, and the so-called mother of all demos, where the idea was that his philosophy was that you can use software to really increase our abilities, to augment our abilities to do creativity or whatever you want to do in software. So all those kind of things are new. And of course you might ask you why I'm standing now here talking about those mega buzz hype topic of machine learning and AI. Of course, because we have more computing power, we have much more data, and of course, our algorithms are getting better and better and better. So that's this kind of thing why this topic pops up right now in that kind of dimension. My favorite slide, every time I talk about machine learning and AI, is don't believe the hype. Of course, everybody's talking about it, everybody wants to use it, but still there's definitely some limitations going on currently, so you can't use it all the time for each use case you want to use it. But let's deep dive a bit more into the topic of creativity and ask the question if AI could become a creative partner. To talk about that, we had to make some words and terms about that. What is computational creativity when we talk about AI and creativity? It's like creative computations, which, if they were made by humans, would be deemed creative. So if you see something that's, oh yeah, that's creative, either a human or a machine would do that you would call computational creativity. And if you think about the task we are doing in our daily business as designers, there's things like hands-on labor, I would say, like cropping images, recoloring stuff. That's not the most exciting thing, and the effort is large, but the complexity is kind of low. But there are also things like applying new styles. If you have something, but you want to kind of repaint it, you want to develop it a bit new, or if you have to rethink the game. This is like where the complexity is super high, but the effort is kind of lowish. And of course, we all know, and as I introduced a bit, that's the boring stuff, and there's the crazy shit, cool stuff where you can do something new. Luckily, you can divide machine learning and the help of machine learning also in those kind of two dimensions. There's the assisted creation and the kind of a generative creation. What does it mean? Assisted creation refers back to the topic I introduced earlier, that humans already used tools back in the days when they want to make fire or something else. And assisted AI makes creativity a bit more accessible, cheaper, and faster. Netflix does some cool things there. If you see an image, the algorithm can automatically detect the face, for example, and frame like the important areas of a picture. If you see that, of course, Kevin Space is not the best example, I'm sorry for that, but it makes a bit clear how does it work. You see the image, it's get detected and automatically cropped and cut and positioned automatically. And if you think about it, that looks super easy, but if you think how much images or tons of images Netflix has to process, how many people needs to be done to do this kind of language adaptation as well. So this is not done by any human anymore, it's just machines doing that. And you might not see it on this beamer, but it's even able to recolor images and next to changing the text of it. Another example which looks a bit profound in the first view is that you can use a person and exchange the background of these images with a fingertip. And it always looks like, yeah, okay, that's not a big deal. But if you see, that's the research paper behind it, and if you see it, how much formula stuff is in there. I try to read it, I try to understand it, it's not possible, because there's so much mathematics behind it. There's a large system behind it, just to enable you to switch backgrounds more easily. Or if you think about comics and build transitions, think about how much love to detail is in this kind of comics, and how much really detail work is in there. To transform your own picture into this kind of style would take you ages in Photoshop. It really takes a long time. With algorithms, they can adapt it and transfer your own picture. It's super fast. Or Adobe Sensei. If you look at the smile, you see that the smile is changing with the move of the slider. This also looks like super profound, but if you think about how much time it would take you as a designer in Photoshop to reframe the face a little bit, that is like now you just have to put a slider. So there you see where this direction kind of goes to. The moment where I first realized that my job will be changed is this Google AI experiment, where they identify your sketch you made, and then recognize this kind of thing you wanted to draw, and then post it to the thing you want to draw. So this is like a pretty quick recognition. And my sketches always look pretty shitty, and this helps a lot to get the things done. And imagine this also looks easy, but still, you make something quick, and your algorithm can transform it to something new, readable, and makes like prototyping much more faster. And speaking of much more faster, Airbnb did another cool and super interesting thing. What they did is they trained an algorithm to detect their sketches they made, recognize the pattern or the front-end component they used, and then automatically deployed it to their front end. So what you do, you make a sketch on a paper, put it below the camera, and what you get is a deployed, ready front end. If you think about it, how much this will increase your prototyping time. If you have like a user test, you will even just make a quick sketch on a paper, put it somewhere, and then you get a deployed front end. This is super cool and super inspiring for me, to be honest. And this is the way it might will change in the future. To get back to this kind of overview, and as you see it, like this helps us to get things done faster and focus on the more important topics. For example, preparing the user test, or have more time to spend with clients or users or whatever you want to do there, and not building the prototype anymore. There's the other thing as well, which is more called the generative creation, where a thing that enables us as designer to really discover a greater number of possibilities and perspectives, and that the cost of creating diversity in your work is getting reduced to a low minimum, I would say. This is like also kind of a basic example where you can, this is like a logo designer, and you can type just 2 sentences in there, and this algorithm will put out 100 kind of logo examples. They might look not the best, but the thing is the idea behind it. If you think our classical double diamond approach, where you go narrow and then go broad again, if you think about you can go broad again with just a single click or some typings, that helps a lot to generate a lot more ideas to take care of. And if you think about how much time it will take you as a designer to create all those, will be a lot of time actually. Or even those Prismas example. This is the app, and you just take pictures and transfer it to your own kind of style. Of course this looks easy, but if you think about how much time it will take you to do that, that's a lot of time actually. Or this Nutella commercial a couple months ago, where each glass has like a different color, a different pattern, it looks completely different. When you think about it, you give the designer a task, hey, could you design how many million of Nutella glasses? He would say, hey, no, I'm definitely not going to do it. But if you feed an algorithm with a certain data like color and patterns, you can do that for sure, in a pretty ease of time. So this is the kind of way it goes. Because the big advantage of an AI is to see things really from a different way and not limited on the things you do normally, so having a large creation of stuff. For example, other perspectives, no designer will come up with this kind of biomorph forms, which is therefore bicycle stem, or the Airbus kind of stuff. Nobody says, hey, let's make this kind of in this shape. No, because we humans are not really able to do that. Or this is the big concert hall in the Elbphilharmonie, which also like the shapes of the wall was designed by machine learning. And no interior designer will say, hey, let's do this kind of shapes because it helps somebody. No, it's just a machine learning algorithm is able to do that. So to sum it up, this really helps to discover kind of new possibilities in unknown territory in comparison of using tools and get things done more easy, more faster. On the other hand, there's might the question if AI becomes a creativity killer. Because this joke explains it really well, who was featured on Twitter recently, because a machine learning algorithm walks into a bar, and of course the bartender asks, hey, what do you want to have? And the algorithm says, hey, what's everybody else is having? So machine learning always somehow creates the average of all the results in the database. But as good designers, of course, you all know that no two people can have the same experience. So there's kind of a mismatch between those two things. A machine learning algorithm which always creates kind of the average of things, and persons and machines or persons who always have different experiences with interacting with a product, for example. But if you look in our design landscape, it all looks a bit the same. Like you have large images, you have like niche typo and those kind of stuff, and it's all replaceable a bit. Same with logos. They all look the same. This might be a problem we're facing when we let machines design our work as well, that all looks kind of the same. Because machines have the big problem, and I would call it like the out-of-the-box problem, because a machine learning algorithm can't use knowledge which is not in the database before. Think about Nutella glass. The algorithm will not come up with a new color which wasn't in the database before, or kind of new patterns. So it always has to use the things which were in the database before. If you look about us as professional designers, we have like lifelong experiences where you can draw from. We have a whole catalog of things where we could use to design and interact things. So which kind of prevents us doing the same things altogether. So there's also kind of the clash why machine learning could potentially be a creative killer, because we have this knowledge database an algorithm uses, and we have us as designer with like lifelong experience and can react to humans way better. But then there was AlphaGo, the first algorithm who beat a person in Go, the game. This was kind of okay because AlphaGo learned from human moves beforehand. But then AlphaGo 0 was introduced, and AlphaGo 0 doesn't use human knowledge at all to train the algorithm by themselves. So the next question is if machine learning will replace designers altogether. And this is kind of the research paper which was published with the AlphaGo 0, which standing and mastering a game of Go without human knowledge. So this kind of human constraint was removed totally, which forms a quote from the lead designer of this project. And just as a remembrance, the pages all look the same. If you think about how our modern web design look like, it's all kind of a bit the same-ish. So we somehow designed ourselves into a corner where you see it's all a bit replaceable, it's all predictable what our design output actually is. So the big statement, which is kind of if we really design like machines predictable and kind of an average, of course machines will take our jobs sooner or later in doing design work by their own. Luckily, of course, I like this kind of quote where it said humans are unpredictable, mushy bags of irrationality and emotion. So you can't really design for an average. There's still hope. On the other hand, think of AlphaGo Zero. We have in our design world, we have certain rules we use when we design. There's the rules of Gestalt, there's those principles published by Dieter Rams, and of course something like the Golden Ratio. So there's some written and unwritten rules of design and interaction design. What if we could train an algorithm to consider those into the things an algorithm published? Keep this in mind when you say in front of Günther, and Günther will ask you, hey, do you think AI will replace designers? Of course, we have the 50-50 joker already. So I want to do a quick hands up. Who thinks AI will replace designers and is on the hell yes side? Do you think machine learning will replace designers? Just do a quick hands up. Oh, just 4 of us, cool. Who's on the fuck no side? Who thinks machines will not replace designers? Cool. That's good. That's a large group. That's interesting to see, to be honest. That's always a kind of to check how is the ratio in the audience. But I have to do some remarks. Of course, with all the cool new toys, new challenges arise. And this is kind of super important topic for me. There's the dark side of AI, which is all the kind of the biases topic, which arises always. And the thing it's biased by design. This picture is from the early days of crash test dummy testing, and those crash test dummies were always male, or have a male shape. That leads to an increase of deadly accidents with women in cars. So this is was a bias or a failure by design. And same things happen often in machine learning currently as well, that they design things which are biased by design. And for example, there was a large database which has kind of sexism things in there, and the data scientist initially didn't discover that. So there had to be people afterwards saying, hey, of course you built this cool database or this cool knowledge base, but it's super sexism, and please stop it and try to fix it, because they don't really notice it. And the thing is that the AI community currently itself has really a homemade problem, that most of them are young, young, male and white. That's sadly the same for me, but I see, which is super cool in the audience, that our audience is at least super diverse. So this is kind of thing where we as designers have to really take care of, that those kind of things doesn't happen anymore. To go for a quick summary, just as introduced, AI is a lot of hype currently, and some of the ideas published now are back from the 80s. There's a difference between assistant and generative creation. AI currently can't think outside the box. It just refers to the knowledge it has in its database. Nevertheless, AI is super powerful at solving things on a different way, different perspective. If we design like machines, of course, machines will take our jobs. If it all looks the same, it's like average, predictable. On the other hand, of course, humans are unpredictable bags of mushy originality and emotion. And the bias is super important, that it's our job to prevent that kind of things from happening. What about us, really? So you could imagine you're sitting on the couch and say, hey, I was a designer before the machines came. This could possibly happen, so we're not sure yet. Of course, there are also articles from Wired where they say, hey, chill, robots won't take our jobs that soon. But still, there are things you could do now. For example, try to understand machine learning and the technology behind it. I think about an example from Airbnb did. They try to understand the technology and try to make use out of it. So think about it, it's super cool to do. And a big advantage of all those kind of things, it's not hidden somewhere in some research department of large corporations. You can go, for example, to Google TensorFlow and see how a vector database with 200 dimensions look like, and just interact with it. Or those Google AI experiments where you see, okay, how much data an algorithm really needs to be trained and have a solid result at the end. Next thing you could do is focus on skills and capabilities machine learning has trouble replacing. Interacting with humans, understanding humans, and motivate humans. This human-to-human connection or communication is super hard for an AI to understand currently, and it will take years, even decades to really nail this thing and understand it. Continue to ask the right questions and try to solve the right use cases or the right problems. You see a lot of companies saying, hey, we need an AI, but they might not really have the perfect use case for that. And as Pablo Picasso already said about computers, okay, they're somehow useless because they still can give you only the answers. There are some persons who need to ask the questions up front. And the other thing is really to take a role in preventing things like bias and sexism and racism in algorithms, because a lot of those kind of algorithms are currently deployed and developed only by data scientists, which might not see the bigger picture of the world and the diversity in our humanity. Quick outlook, we will step back from the hands-on labor like image cropping, recoloring things, which gives us more time to do the cool stuff, talking to users, talking to clients, work on other topics. And it's time to identify those opportunities and collaborate with those kind of technologies, build things, experiment, do some failure stuff also, but it's super that you not like hide in front of it or be against it or afraid of it, but just be curious what this kind of technology can do for us humans. That's all. Thank you.